Welcome to CYBV 326 PCAP Quiz Breakdown. This is a series of videos I intend to continue making, which highlights problems that most of the students experience on some of the quizzes. For this week, we're going to go over the Week 4 PCAP quiz. There were several questions on here that I received many questions from students on that all had very similar pitfalls in how the approach was taken. One of the more difficult questions that left everyone scratching their heads was related to DNS lookups. In this micro video, we're going to go over one of the questions. So let's open up Wireshark and dive into the packets. So here I've got Wireshark open, and I'm going to go ahead and quickly load up the Week 4 quiz capture. The question is as follows, and should be on your screen. Which of the following steps to answer the question? We're expected to clear all display filters, and then we're to filter for DNS. The question is, a DNS query was made for an MIT attempting to determine the authoritative name server. Which of the following is one of the name servers associated with MIT.edu? Now, for the purposes of this example, we will not be using MIT.edu, but we will be using other data that produces similar results. So instead of MIT.edu, we're going to go ahead and look for IETF.org. So let's start with the first thing that it asks us to do. We're going to go ahead and filter for DNS. So let's quickly make that filter happen. The first thing that we can do, not knowing anything about how filters work or how to find information, would be to simply scroll through this information looking for IETF.org. Which, as you can see, is somewhat difficult to do. Well, here is one. We just happened to find it while scrolling through. Now, we could find it from here. Now, that is extremely difficult. So let's open up our find function, which we can get to from edit, find packet, or control F. You want to make sure that in this section, you have the packet details selected and that string is selected. And here, we're going to go all the way back up to the top. And then you're going to type in IETF.org and you'll hit find. And you'll see we got to that exact one, number 9162. Now, if you notice over here, because we're filtering for DNS packets, Wireshark knows a little bit about what's happening here. So it knows that that's a query and that's our response. Even though this is UDP traffic, it's able to put those two things together. We're not tracking any state here, but it is able to track that information for us. So let's take a look. So there's our query. Then we got our response. Now, this is certainly where most students ran into a little bit of the problem, and the answers came from the first response. As most of you experienced, that is not correct. So what is it that we're actually looking for here? Well, we're not looking for the name or the host names of the servers. We're looking for the name of the authoritative name server, not of the website or the site we're trying to browse to. So what does that mean? What is it that we're looking for? Well, we're looking for name servers. Remember, it said authoritative name server, which is also referred to as name server, which is abbreviated as NS. So as you're scrolling through this section, you'll notice we do see things with NS in them. So let's take a look. We're at 9168. That's our response. What's the next thing that we have for IETF.org? Well, we see a request looking for analytics.ietf.org. And then we got a response looking for that. And let's hit it again until we get back to the beginning. Here's a request for name server for www.ietf.org. And then we get our standard response. Is there any more traffic for IETF.org? Well, we'll hit find again, and you'll notice we jump back up to 9162. So those 6 packets are all that we're seeing for IETF. Now, that's a lot to particularly look at on screen, so there are some different ways that we can do it. But if you don't want to go any further than this, you can certainly continue to do that. But you have to remember, and up on the screen should be a diagram of the DNS lookups. You'll see many servers are involved when we do lookups, which means we need to get our response from the different server that we're looking for that information to come from and the specific record type. So what can we do? Well, since it's very difficult for me, and probably you since you're new to this, to remember the syntax of filters up here, just beyond the basics, oftentimes it's pretty easy for us to just take the information from our query information down here and drag it up into our display filter. So the easiest way to do that is to come down and find what we're looking for. And here I'm looking for a name that happens to be ietf.org, www. That's the specific thing that we're looking for. So if I drag that up here, you'll notice it turns into a plus, and I let go of it, it gives us some options. We can do selected, not selected. We can AND it with the DNS that's already there, which is somewhat duplicative, or selected, not selected, selected. I'm just going to select selected. Now we see that, but notice we only have 4 here. Previously we had 6. Well, that's because we're using the equals parameter with a very specific hosting. We're looking for a DNS query looking for www.ietf.org. Now, for the purposes of this quiz, this would have worked just fine for you once you reference the name server response. However, there are a couple different more advanced things that we can do. So if you're ever asked for, hey, what are all the standard query requests that were in a particular PCAP? Well, I have a filter that's already built for that. So let's just kind of jump into that. I'm going to click this button. And is DNS.flags equals 0x0100. That is the standard query request type. So you can see these are all the different things that we're looking for in this particular PCAP. And you also get the answers there as well. So if you were to do this from this particular filter, you would see you've got your IETF. We've got our analytics listed there. We've got our request for the IETF from the name server, but we don't have any response, right? This is the standard request. If we want to do a response, we can do 8180 for our filter. That'll give us all of the answers. Now, again, we'd have to write down what we're looking for and figure out which one of these this goes to. You'll notice that it's referencing over here that the request was in a different packet, which isn't on the screen. Well, maybe I'd like to see both of them. Well, let's change our filter out just a little bit and use a little bit of less specificity in our filter. So we're going to use the DNS.query.name, and we're going to use the contains filter. Right? So that's like wildcard. So match something. And I'm going to do as broad as possible. I'm going to go at the domain level, ietf.org. So let's see what happens when we find that. Now we're getting back what we saw when we hit find on each one of the lookups for ietf.org. So we're seeing that we have those in here. So remember, we have our A records, our responses. We also, in the examples that was in the quiz, also had returns for quad A records, which are IPv6 records. Regardless, it doesn't matter because we are looking for the NS record. So there's a lot of different things that we're looking for. Now remember, we weren't looking for the CNAME, and that is where most people got confused. So take a look at the questions and make sure that when you're looking for DNS that you're responding to the correct ask, not the first response that you get. Pretty common problem, and I hope this helps you out on the other packet capture quizzes we have in the future. Thank you for your time today, and we'll see you in the next video.